anyone thought about that yet. So I think that's a really good way to begin. And you're aerating the ground. Don't even need a broad fork. Genius. This is what we're up against. Or up with, maybe. Kia ora koutou, my name is Angela Clifford. If you were over in the big tent before lunch, I have now miraculously changed into another person again. I am from the food farm, which is a small farm about 10 minutes from here. And we grow most of our own food and teach other people how to grow food as well. We've been on the small farm for 20 years, and this conversation is about the future of our small farms. So I have some wonderful wahine who are going to join me to talk about the future of small farms. I am, in fact, not Michael Andrew. I know that'll surprise you all. Michael is my editor. I write a column in On the Land magazine, and Michael was meant to be here, but he's been unable to make it. So I'm going to take his place. So I will also be asking myself questions. However, in a beautiful twist of fate, we've actually made this panel even better because the empty seat gives us room for an amazing woman that I'd like to introduce you to. Her name is Gina-Lee Duncan. Gina, Gina, do you just want to come up and introduce yourself while I grab my questions from my bag, which is at the back of the room? Kia ora.
Kia ora, Angela. Ngā mihi. Kia ora koutou, ko waio. Ko te pohi o te maunga, ko Koukou Rarata te awa, ko Ngaitahu, Ngāti Māmoe, Waitaha, Ngāti Rangi, Oku Iwi. Ko Gina-Lee Duncan toka wingwa. What do I get up to? So I live in this paradise called Koukou Rarata on Banks Peninsula, Port Levy, known for some. I currently manage our marae over there called Tuta Huarewa. Our hapu is Ngāti Huikai predominantly, and so within that name I feel like I have a responsibility of increasing our kai systems and how we educate and how we have our lives attached to everything that we consume. Ka pai? Kia ora.
Kia ora. Woo! And I want someone else to join us as well. She is my daughter's favourite scientist. What a way to introduce someone. Her name is Melissa Robson-Williams, and she's a bit of a rare animal in that she's a social scientist. I don't know if you'd describe yourself. Oh, interesting. There we go. Well, that's how I've always seen her. An extraordinary woman that holds much respect in Canterbury. I'll let her give you more details, but suffice to say, she is a scientist and also the co-owner of a small farm. Melissa, do you want to come and join us?
Thanks, Angela.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Kia ora koutou. So call Melissa Robson-Williams, I hope. Speak a bit louder. So I'm so pleased to be here. I'm coming to you with two perspectives or two dimensions. So one perspective is as an environmental scientist, a transdisciplinary environmental scientist. But I think to your point is recognizing that environmental problems, although they manifest in the environment, they often don't come from the environment. They come from quite often human systems and social systems. So even though my work is on the environment, people are at the center of it. And I guess like pretty much every other environmental scientist, I am trying to help us live in a more balanced way with this amazing ecosphere and biosphere that support us. And the other perspective that I come is Lottie. Did anybody see Lottie, the electric tractor? So I'm one of Lottie's mums. So so I'm one of the partners in the Regenerations Partnership. So kia ora.
Awesome. Okay, Michael's got some questions. I'm going to completely ignore them and make up my own.
So I've prepared for all of the questions.
Yes,
So.
I thought you might say that. But you're a scientist, you'll work it out. Okay, I'll start. I won't riff this one too much for you, but how does your research interpret the spread of conventional lifestyle blocks at the fringes of cities and large towns? So what are the main problems that arrive in terms of rural fragmentation, loss of food production land, etc.? Because I think that what we're seeing is almost the dissolution of even lifestyle blocks, right? We started with these big farms and then we went to small farms, and now the small farms are turning into housing blocks. And yeah, would love to hear your thinking around that.
Yeah, 100%. So
Melissa,
hold it closer. So one of the phenomenon that we see with lifestyle blocks is land fragmentation, as we see. So agricultural land being fragmented into smaller blocks. One of the things that can generate is a straight loss of agricultural land, and a lot of our lifestyle blocks are on our something we call highly productive land. So this is our kind of class 1 horticultural soils. So these are really, really precious soils, and probably about 15 or 20% of all of the class 1, 2, 3 land is actually now covered in lifestyle blocks. So it kind of poses quite a big threat. That's not really my area of research. My area of research comes in after that to say, well, what's the consequence of that? So one of the consequences that we've just seen is as you start to get lifestyle blocks that form in the peri-urban area, then it displaces agricultural production to somewhere else. But also we start to see roads, for example, being more roads going out to these peripheral areas, which then starts to make the commute back into the city more viable. So that land that was agricultural, now lifestyle block, is now really attractive to suburban division. And so we start to see the kind of the expansion actually enabled by the roads that are kind of moving out of the city. So that's that kind of what's the kind of next consequence and next consequence. That's one of my areas of research.
Wow, that's such a fascinating perspective. So what you're saying is you put in a road and the people will come.
You put in a road, absolutely. And it's actually a really common thing. So lots of traffic on the road. People are like, oh, there's so much traffic on the road. What we need bigger roads. So you build a bigger road and everybody goes, whew, that's great. But then that makes this further out areas attractive. Then we build in those further out areas. We don't provide any public transport. All of those people get a car. 20 years later, you've got just as many cars on the road. And so it's what, in systems language, it's a really key leverage point that we push in the wrong direction. So we should push it in the other direction, like smaller roads.
Less roads. Love it. So when we use these terms like lifestyle block, which I hate, I think I said last night, we won't be using that term again in this talk, if that's okay. No, I'm joking. Not really joking.
Yeah, I have a comment on that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you do. So when we use term like lifestyle blocks, when we use term like small farms, when we think about private ownership of land that belongs to one person or one family, these are actually the lens we put on, or the glasses we put on when we think about that, is a very Western version of all of those concepts for most of us. But that's not the case in terms of everybody in Aotearoa, is it? And Gina-Lee, I wondered if you'd like to share your perspective on this idea of smaller farms and what that might mean in Te Ao Māori.
Yeah, thanks. Lifestyle blocks. Like, I just seen it to be a really promoted kind of healthy way of living, like in the Western world, that everybody has a lifestyle block, but it's still really individual to just like one family of mum, dad, maybe, and I'm just being generic here because I'm, and I'm not, I'm also like tauiwi as well, so, I feel like I can speak to these spaces. But mum, dad, 3 children equates to probably 3 cars up the driveway, right? But still limited like kind of external expression of a lifestyle that's healthy and abundant of well-being and insulated in just those 4 fence lines, I suppose. And so when we get to see around Canterbury, especially like what we were talking about with lifestyle blocks, it's still very individual. Where I see a healthy lifestyle block with being more people than houses, pretty much. The infrastructure around how is papakainga. And papakainga more so than just bricks and mortar.
Can
It's
you
about how we
explain
live.
what papakainga is?
Yeah, sure. So papakainga is probably the closest interpretation of lifestyle, I suppose, a lifestyle block. However, it's intergenerational living of where whānau come together on a piece of land and work towards a self-determining environment of a collective. So hapu, I suppose, is a good example. So we have a tribe of people, and then within that tribe we have our hapu, and within those hapu we have our whānau. So it's kind of weird for me to think of the individualism of a small farm environment where I don't get that.
What do you get in that space?
Yeah,
What's the
collectivism.
alternative?
I think collectivism and intergenerational impacts, because we're all learning from the older generation about farming and how we specifically grow kai. It's the connection to the whenua and it's the connection to te taiao, which connects us to us as humans, you know. I think like it's an intimate way of small farming, and with that there's an intimacy in everything that you do. And then I think that just like exceeds in love, right? You know it, you live it, you do it.
So it's reconnection to whenua, do you think?
Yeah, 100%. 100% connection to whenua, because some of us are lucky enough to have never lost that, you know, and it's just more intimate with every part of how we live. And so if you have an intimacy with what you eat, how you see the environment, it's really going deeper into how you live your life. And then there's a collective, and then you're attracted, the people come to you and learn from you and then go off into other regions more so than just being in isolation. It's a deeper meaning to farming, I suppose, and living.
This is a question for myself. Apparently, we seem to represent a new type of lifestyle block owner. Who knew? Someone who's choosing to use their land to grow food, bring community together, and employ holistic practices, e.g. a small farmer. What does your research say about the emergence of this type of land use and owner? Maybe that's a question for you, actually, is it? Have you done research on the...
Not particularly.
Okay, maybe it's for me.
It would be a personal observation rather than a research observation.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe I ask you that question from a personal perspective, because I do think that we are starting to see an emergence of a different type of small farm, and one that is intimately connected with community. It feels like small farms are starting to be places that people who live in cities can visit. I know that in Canterbury and nationally we've had something called the Open Farm Scheme over the last couple of years. And I know on our farm we run open days, and I know that we're both connected coming up in a North Canterbury Open Day scheme. This opportunity to open gates of farms at a time when sometimes gates of bigger farms are harder to open, just in terms of health and safety and regulations and all of those kind of things. So what's what's that value? Do you see a movement towards a different type of small farm than we have had in the past?
Yeah. So one observation is, so two observations to make. So one is that lifestyle blocks, as we currently, in their current incarnation, do produce, they are productive, often often around grazing. And so when I saw that question from Michael, I was like, that's really interesting. So what's changed? Because I do think that there is a change, and I was like, so what is it that changed? And it made me reflect on our situation with Roger and me at Regenerations. And 100% we bought a lifestyle block. When we moved, it was the kind of the good life, the whole kind of kit and caboodle. And through the process of building relationship with the place that we're in, we then kind of went on a bit of a journey from a lifestyle block, which I think is essentially an internally self-referential thing, to a kind of an orientation more outwards, like being in this place, building a relationship with the kind of human and more than human inhabitants of this place, and then thinking about what is the role of this place in a community, in both a biophysical and ecological, a bioregional, a human community. Like, what is the role of it? And that, to me, was the turning of internal lifestyle block to external small farm. And I think that we're seeing, when I kind of went through that thought process, I was like, I think that is that's one of the turnings that we are seeing, is that it's not just the good life for me and for my kind of usually kind of small family group, but more of what's the role of this opportunity and place in a more connected network. So, yeah.
Cool. And Gina-Lee, any reflections on that from your perspective, or even just helping us understand the history of Papa Kaianga and where you feel things are at the moment, and anything?
Yeah, cool. I'd like to think that we're making a go back to how we used to live, as opposed to it's a new concept, because we did live. I suppose when I was thinking about small farms, I was like, what do I know about small farms? I don't know. But then actually I've been brought up in what is a pa, and we grew our own food, and we harvested from the ngahere, or the bush, and we just lived that lifestyle of what seemed to be sustainable at the moment, But we didn't see it as that. We didn't have the narrative to be able to express what it was in society to support it. It just was. Until, my grandfather had to convert a lot of the land where we grew our crops into a dairy farm, because that's what success was going to be for us, And then it kind of just went away from there. There was, there was a talk this morning that Mania done, if any of you were up at the hill when he was speaking, and it was about the iwi management plan of our 5 hapu got together, and how we looked at what greed was for us as a peoples. And our greed was to want the white bait in the rivers. We wanted clean rivers. We wanted the soils where we could grow abundance. That was our interpretation of greed, right? Where we were being pushed to a more commercial level of acceptance. So as Māori, we have land that's been farmed by Frontiera. I do. And for a lot of people, that may be success, that I get a check every year for being a shareholder in Frontiera, the dairy farming. But then I'll be out going, come on, Frontiera, where are you selling to? Whoopsie. But, like that big corporation kind of stuff. But I still have to go and buy $11 worth of butter, for £1. Like, that's not success for me and my generational farming. But when my boy comes in from picking a cauliflower or a broccoli into the house, that's success. So there's a different kind of concept of success, and which is humanity, right? We all want clean grain food. I'm sure we do. But it's just defining and just the word differences about what we've inherited, and then how do I explain what we perceive to be normal, I suppose.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So what we're saying is that we've got different narratives that have different words, and we haven't had collective words for these spaces necessarily. And what's the opportunity potentially in the future to have collective words for these spaces, and how can we learn from each other and understand that there's versions, and be in partnership potentially. Any thoughts around that, either of you?
You carry on.
I think there's massive opportunity in the grey areas of the black and white.
Hello. Gina-Lee. Yep. So the question is, how do you work towards collective decision making, and how do you, when as couples you can't even agree on what to do with a piece of land, how do you do that at community level?
All about intimacy, love. Nah, no jokes. But it's about respecting each other's individualism. I reckon, if that's a word, might have just made that up. But and working out your strengths within that area. I think when I do it with a whole heap of whānau, it's about identifying from a very young age, actually, what their skill bases are, and nurturing that. Because I wouldn't say my younger cousin, who's a really great fisherman, who naturally, as a baby, would always try and run to the sea and be hototo around the environment of water that needed close eyes on him, right? Naturally, we go, okay, he's probably not going to be in the bush or in the ngahere or in the gardens. He'll be a fisherman. So it's about identifying, even talking about what your individual passions and your individual movements are, about how you want to contribute to the wider community and your wider whānau, and just working from there.
There's questions now. But I also have some more here. This is from Michael. Larger farms are often encumbered by debt, commercial pressure and export markets, which prevents them sometimes from pivoting towards more holistic practices. But what about small farms? Are they more easily able to engage in regenerative food production and practices, and why? Any thoughts around that, Melissa?
I mean, I think the seeds of the answer are in the question. When I saw this question, I thought I would just go and have a little look at a big survey. It's called the Survey of Rural Decision Makers. It's a really interesting, been running for kind of 15 years, probably 6,000 or 7,000 farmers and lifestyle block owners and forest block owners participate in the survey every couple of years. And it gets at some of what people are doing on the land, what their motivations are, what they're going to focus on in the future. And one of the things that you can really characterize between commercial operators and what are called lifestyle block owners is the imperative, the financial imperative. So for lifestyle block owners, the main reasons that they do what they do is for lifestyle, farming identity, and environmental stewardship. Much, much, much smaller expectation around generating a return. For commercial farmers, that's like 60 or 70% of the not intrinsic motivation, but what dictates what they do is the need to kind of return on investment. And although farms have, like every other business, they have lots of, they have agency. You also have all sorts of things that sit outside the farm, which essentially can kind of determine or influence what people can actually do on the farm. So it kind of stands to reason where lifestyle blocks often have off-farm incomes that they can experiment, that they can think about new kind of practices. And as an industry, if you think about small farms or lifestyle blocks as an industry, it's incredibly diverse. Like the knowledge, the experience that people have got is really diverse. So it's kind of not surprising that it's a little bit more experimental. So I definitely think that is something that we see.
And in terms of being experimental, I've noticed this shift to think just beyond food, but also into things like fibre and forestry, but also energy sufficiency. And what are the opportunities for these spaces which can quite often generate more than enough energy for themselves? Do you think there's a movement towards energy sufficiency? And I know that Melissa's got a really good answer to this, but I wondered, Gina-Lee, if you had any experience or thoughts, given that Cocoa Rarata is incredibly isolated and increasingly so given climate acceleration or disintegration, whichever way you want to go with that. What are the thoughts around energy sufficiency and water sufficiency for communities?
Okay, awesome. So I think individual energy is really important when you're speaking to small farming and when you are conscious about how you're working the land and how you're working on top of the land as well, and not to underestimate what our individual impacts are when you're working the land as a individual. So there's an energy that is created from just doing what we are doing. And the second thing is about a bigger commercial kind of arena there. What I kind of get ho-ha about really is, but it's the reality, is having to try and restate again what was done to us, and now we're kind of having to come up with the solutions where actually, if you just let us be and work the land as we seem fit, because what do we value? A lot of it's just not a monetary exporting kind of value. It's value for many of us is the connection to Papatuanuku and our taio in that. So I kind of feel like we're still kind of having to create solutions for something that we didn't actually cause.
Fair. And what about, but just to really press it on you, sorry, the fact that, if I think about some of the places where there are marae and that sense of isolation that's been created by weather events, what do you think the opportunities are for whānau and for Papa Kaianga to take back some sovereignty in that space?
Yeah, great question, because I'd just like us to close the road really and just be self-sufficient over there and just live our little life without any influential kind of outsiders to come in. So I think that's, for me, that's what small farms and the importance of it is, to be totally self-sufficient. We've got rainwater, when it happens. We've got awa that will need a bit of filtering if we need it. We've got, we've just got everything that we need. If we just strip all the layers back and take it back to basics, it's just all pretty simple, really, and take that whole monetary value out of it and just be about connection and intimacy. Who doesn't want that? Like, how can you put a price on that?
Yeah, beautiful. Energy, as in solar, is obviously a solution in that situation. So being the creators of your own energy. And I know, Melissa, that's something that you've been really thinking about, you and Roger, on your small farm. Do you want to speak a little bit to your energy sufficiency?
Sure thing. And this is the energy part is that's really kind of Roger's domain. But I guess one of the things that that we both, I guess, understood from our work is that energy is that a lot of our work is energy blind. A lot of our solutions that we put forward are energy blind. They don't paying attention to the fact that we are using this massive carbon pulse, and we're thinking of solutions or thinking of ways that we're going to respond to all of the mess that we have caused and other people have caused, but often without a mind to energy. So one of the things that the Roger and I try and do at Regenerations is looking and seeing what we and our community and our more than human community are going to need and currently need, and then think, how do we suffice across all of those things? And one of those things is energy. So we use we invested a lot in solar, and not really not to kind of go off grid, because actually being able to put things back into the grid is a kind of good contribution that you can make right at the end of the line. But thinking about how, when things do go wrong, how we might be a good little energy hub for our community. So we invested a lot in solar and in kind of electric vehicles in Lottie, in order to provide this quite big battery pack, but not just a stable battery pack, a battery pack that we can use to 10 minutes, thank you, that we can use to do farm work, a battery pack in the car that we can use to drive around as well. But for us, it's how the energy provision, both from collecting solar, but from trees, from fibre, fits in with all of the other things that we're trying to do: food, biodiversity, water, emissions.
Yeah, it's really impressive stuff. And I think both of you actually are innovators, not just in terms of what you're trying or your ability to give something a go or your appetite for risk, but also in terms of how you're finding ways to connect that back to who you are and what your vision is. So I find that really exciting. And I wondered, we've just got 10 minutes left, so are there some questions in the audience that people would like to ask about small farms? Yep.
Just following on from the ladies' comment over here, obviously Māori have successfully lived collectively, communally for hundreds of years in this whenua and in Polynesia before that. How can we learn from Te Ao Māori to inform our small farms today to really get back to that kind of localised, communal, collective values and traditions that have been so common in this land, and now we kind of, I hear some of us say, oh, where can we get that back? But we actually, where can we find those answers? Great question, Maddie. Well, I think what's also quite sexy about knowing some of our values, I suppose, is the kaupapa of hua parakore. And I think that some of you would have been at the conversation today in the presentation, because what that does is it gives values and it gives a language on what is a great way to live, right? Like, I don't know if anyone could distribute that, because no matter what race you are, we just want the wellness and another connection to Papa Tuanuku and all of our responsibilities as humans, right? Which is exactly what you're doing as well, which is commendable, as it's just framing it a little bit differently. So I think that's a national kind of framework, and with the principles that are internationally recognised. So that's a really cool place to start. And it's just about self-reflection, really, in what you're doing, and having the focus on not so much about today or tomorrow or next week, but the intergenerational impact of what you're doing into the near future for our mokopuna that aren't born yet.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yep. Kia ora. If you'd just like to leave a Google review for the Underground Festival, that would be great.
No, but true. Like it is like people like Angela that have seen the vision, you know, and is living the life of a small farm contributing to her whānau, and now they're older, and now where does she take it? And it's out into the community, and it's in the wider community, and it's nationally, and it's international now. So just a big mihi to Angela for seeing this foresight and making it happen. Second year. Imagine what it's going to look like in 5 years.
Jess, did you have a question?
No, I just had a comment actually, just to follow up. We've been on our block for 20 plus years now, and we're now looking at this concept of having the land own itself. So instead of having inheritance and the farm goes to my one child, that's not really what we want to do. We want to keep the kaupapa going on the land. So how can we get the land into Papatūānuku actually owning itself? Because when we talk about whakahoki e whenua mai in Aotearoa, land back, honour the treaty, then one of the things that we can do is actually to get the land into owning itself. So there's a few farms, small farms, where we are in the Lower North Island, which are looking at that as well, market gardens that are looking at that as well. People who have had money who have bought the land, but are getting on in life and don't want to work it, so they've opened the land up, younger people are coming in to work it, and then they're creating these different structures and these economies to be able to actually do it differently. So I think we have to fracture the model of colonial land title in New Zealand
Awesome. Wow. You know, this isn't actually where I thought this whole I kind of thought maybe it would. This conversation go around this idea that we have about individual land ownership and how it's got us to this point, but how it's becoming really not fit for purpose for another generation that can't afford mortgages, can't afford land. Like, how do we reimagine the whole system? So I've got 2 minutes left and I've got one hand up. So is it a question? See, this is the thing about lack of questions. Yeah. Okay.
I read Charles Massey, The Fall of the Reed Warbler, recently, and he says at the end of that New Zealand is the first country that's actually set the precedent for the land owning itself. So there's already precedent for it here in the legal system, as I understand it.
Yeah, I think in terms of a river owning itself, yep, or having personhood, yep, yeah, totally. Yeah, well, that's our wero, that's our challenge. So we've started this process of thinking about this differently, and where might this lead us in the future? So I think that's our time. Is there any sort of last comments from either of you?
You start. Okay. Oh, yeah, just another thanks to you, Angela. I didn't really know what, like the small farm kind of concept was. It was kind of hard to get around my head around it. But, yeah, I just think, like, everybody that's been here over the last couple of days, it's really nice to be able to speak to an audience that has the same intentions. Like, there's a lot of time that we spend a lot of time of, like, trying to justify our own words and who we are and what we want to do and, just put in that big speak of, like, that makes us a bit haututu, I suppose. But this seems like it's been a really good vibe of like-minded people, no matter what the race is. So, yeah, well done, you.
So land fragmentation is a genuine risk. Like, it is a genuine risk here in Aotearoa, actually internationally. But with some of the concepts that we've been talking about today, Māori Organics, talking about more collective ownership, talking about regenerative soil practices, these are things that can turn that fragmentation into resilience. So the fragmentation doesn't have to be the risk that it poses. It could actually turn into something that's more resilient. And so occasions like this, people like you two doing the work that you're doing as agents of change become really important to change that risk into resilience. So kia ora, thank you.
Awesome. If you two would also like to leave a Google review for the Underground Festival, that would be wonderful. Just a big mihi to you both for stepping up and allowing me to facilitate when that wasn't what was meant to happen, and a massive mihi to you all for contributing, and I know this is a conversation that will continue. So kia ora.